Hello and welcome back to the Blizzard Arena here in Burbank, California. We are at the tail end of Group D play. We just watched Team Expert send the team from Taiwan packing. Soul Torturers are out of Blizzcon this year. Maybe try again in the next. Bad Benny said it was the spicy chicken that fueled their victory. Will that chicken be enough for them to take a win over SPT from China? Or will the Chinese team rise above their roster issues to claim a spot for China in the quarterfinals? Let's go over to our desk. James, what do you think?
It's going to be a good one, I think, as EXP, Mr. Expert, the team that is Expert, is looking to try and round out this group. But of course, SPT has proved so far today that they are no small task at all. To my left-hand side, we have Skimmy, we have Wade, Dreadnought, that guy. I keep calling him Wade. It's
Second
weird.
time.
I don't know. It's very strange, isn't it?
You never call me Wade, like off camera or anything.
No,
it's
I don't.
just only when we get on camera, like, now his name's Wade.
I don't know, my brain's kerfuffled. And of course, at the very end, we have Kaldor. So,
why do I not get this special treatment?
Can't remember.
Andre,
that one, right?
Andre.
Yeah.
Sweet, man.
All right, let's take a look at Group D and see how things have gone. It's been a fun 4 days so far. We're about to round it all out with SPT going up against Team Expert. Of course, Ballistics backed themselves the first spot up to the top, and it was very, very decisive by them. So, gentlemen, SPT versus Team Expert. Expert looks pretty good there against Soul Torturers in the past 2 games, Kaldor.
Yeah, they looked a lot better, I would say, on Tomb. I talked to Athera afterwards. He promised me he's not going to run it down again mid lane. And as long as he gets Tracer, he's going to be very happy. I think they had a couple of shaky moments in the mid and late game on the last map where they allowed Soul Torturers to come back in. But overall, especially the early game, was pretty solid. And if they can continue their trend, they should be able to make it happen here.
I mean, I was just going to say, in terms of execution, it feels like for Expert, they kind of woke up a little bit. It's hard to really know exactly what their mentality was going into that first series against Ballistic. But I mean, in terms of their rival SPT in this situation as well, I feel like they played pretty well against Ballistics as well. So in terms of where I'm going with this to sort of decide the matchup, I feel like it's going to come down to macro to a degree for Expert to try and take the win in the end.
I think that's a fair assessment. The one thing that I'm a little bit concerned with on the side of Expert specifically is the fact that it seems like they have been kind of playing passive. And yeah, I did feel like they were waiting a little bit more. You know, they were warming up to it, and then they got a lot more aggressive. But if they don't kind of force the hand as effectively as we saw like they were able to do against Soul Torturers, I feel like SPT does have the individual skill level to really turn around some fights, especially with players like Senja.
Well, let's focus on SPT to start things off, of course, as they are, you know, again, both of these teams, in fact, one series away from elimination, but one series away from moving on to BlizzCon, Kaldor.
Yeah, the one thing that impressed me, especially when we looked at the first series, is that they seem to come online in these games, especially towards the later stage of the game, when we have very impactful team fights that, especially because of the long death timer, have a huge impact on the outcome of the game. And as long as they win those, they can easily snowball that to a victory by grabbing a key or maybe even pushing it towards the core. So early game victories, fine, nice and well, but if SPT is able to get these late game fights again against Expert, then Expert could be in trouble here.
I feel like if I am Expert, one player, if I wanted to try and focus on and pick on, it would definitely be Soap. He has made some major plays for the team. I feel like he kind of clutches it out when he needs to, but it does feel like kind of in the early to mid game that he's been a bit lackluster. He's made the right rotations. He's gone for the play. It's just the skill shots haven't necessarily connected. So I'm looking at that for the members of Expert, trying to exploit maybe the lack of confidence he's displayed in his play today.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like it's a case of, going back to my original point, much the same as you say there, just playing proactive, being the ones that take the advantage. You're taking the ball and saying, this is the strategy that we want to go with, and you have to play around that. I mean, they really sort of showcased that on the Sky Temple game, where you get to see they were continuously always running around, not really any idea, I'd say, as critical as that sounds, as to really where they want to go with things. It's like, I can use this ultimate, I can, you know, stage dive in. Ooh, I cleared a minion wave, right? So it comes down to, if Expert can get the map that they're after, if they can get the macro play that they deserve, then it's going to be a close game.
Well, it's on to Team Orange, Team Expert here, who stares at them from across the other side of the stage as we have this best of 3 about to ensue. What can you highlight about Team Expert so far from this group?
Now, just talking a bit about the mindset heading into the group, as we talked about it earlier, they personally felt that they would trade better into Ballistics. They didn't really necessarily expect to come out as the first seed, but they expected the series to be a lot closer. So they now understand that there's quite a gap that they have to fill. On the other hand, when you hear them talk about their next opponent, about SPT, they expect them to be very much on a similar level as Soul Torturers, especially looking at the first series. It was a clean 2-0 if you only look at the score, but Soul Torturers really brought the fight to SPT. So Expert expects a very similar style to come out, a very similar power level, I would say. But they are, of course, quite careful here, since they know that every single little mistake that you make right now could mean the end of you at Blizzcon at the HGC finals.
I think from a overall play style and maybe overall team strength level, I think I can agree with that assessment from like Expert's perspective, but I do feel like it's maybe not giving enough credit to SPT on an individual level. The coordination does seem to be kind of struggling, but when we watch their play, like specifically Misaka and Xian Qiao, I feel like their play level on an individual level has been so impressive that I would just be I would be more, hesitant if I was the members of Expert.
One more live opportunity during opening week here, whilst we get into the 2017 HGC finals, to keep cheering for the teams that you want to actually progress and do well. And you can cheer any team, actually, to be honest with you, even if they've been completely eliminated. As we do have 26 million cheers, almost reaching that 27 million as it keeps rising and rising. So a huge thank you to the HGC universe for contributing and supporting the teams as we move on, as well as grabbing yourself a few goodies along the way. Skimmy, what are your thoughts about Team Expert?
Team Expert, I mean, they were the hard to say, I wouldn't say favorite, but a lot of teams have actually said that, they are a strong team to obviously deal with. As broad as that sounds, it comes back to our original point to start the day off with as to where do we assess the European power. Fnatic, Dignitas, for the most part, really controlled that. Obviously, Expert come themselves into this, their second big LAN event, really, to try and obviously go onto the biggest stage possible. In terms of nerves, they didn't really say that was a big factor. They said, obviously, they've boot camped, they've practiced hard for this. I think as long as they're in their heads with the confidence, I think confidence really is going to be the name of the game for both of these teams, to be quite frank, as to whether or not they get the picks that they want, they can execute it as well. And once that momentum is there, we could see potentially the 2-0s on either side.
All right, let's find out which battleground we're going to be heading to here as Expert goes up against SPT, and it will be Brax's holdout. That's not where I expected to go to start things off, Caldo.
Yeah, not quite. So this is once again a situation where we could see a special strategy come out of a team, but then again, it's also a map that Expert has played and chosen in the past. So I think they are going to be well prepared for this. I want to come back to a point that Skimmy just made, because he talked about power levels and what to expect here, and I think for a lot of our viewers, that's also a big question. And I think when we're talking about the Korean and the European teams, most teams here agree that in general, Europe and Korea are roughly on the same level, with the top two having a bit of a gap towards the third team. So if you look at the third seed out of Korea, which is Tempest, they are quite a bit removed from Ballistics and MVP Black, and then that resulted in them actually even being eliminated. Expert is in a similar situation right now, so them losing against the number 2 seed out of Korea is not really quite a surprise. As I said earlier, they expected the gap to be a little bit closer, but they didn't say, hey, we expected to be the favorite heading into this.
I suppose we have this little weird dynamic in Europe, aside from League play, where the Western Clash, Dignitas didn't get there, so we never got to get that full glimpse into Dignitas Expert level-wise.
Exactly, it's a really good point, and especially Dignitas is currently performing, I would argue, even a little bit better than Fnatic in the way that they present themselves. But heading into the draft here, Expert, now that we have Braxis, is actually expecting something like a siege composition from their opponent. You can tell that immediately. They ban out Zarya. We already had some Zarya play on the side of the North American teams that tried to siege up quite heavily in the early game. So Expert is playing it at this point a bit safer and try to eliminate all kinds of potential cheese that could come out of SPT.
There are a lot of wild picks that we have seen from SPT over the year on a map like Braxis Holdout. From Artanis, we have some Ragnaros coming out from them. I mean, they've had Nova at some point in time, as we saw at the Western Clash. Like, they're very comfortable flexing, and not to, forget the fact that China was the first to bust out the Zagara strategy on a map like Braxis Holdout. So I think concern towards Siege, I don't want to use the word cheese because it very much is not the case. This is the meta within the Chinese region. Is something, I like the fact that we already see Expert putting concern in that with the Zarya ban.
I want to see now if Expert are going to go for that Tessera high priority pick. We've seen it being a defining pick really for them today.
I mean, this is the first time Medivh has not been banned against them first, correct?
It is, I believe, the very first game they've had the opportunity to.
Now we have Expert with an early Genji. There's a lot of first picks that are really absolutely excelling here. We have seen in North America, for example, a high priority on Morales on this map. And other regions have followed up on a higher priority with Morales just in general. When we're talking about Brax's holdout, a hero that I could have seen also earlier pick is, for example, Chromie. Expert is known to have an excellent Chromie player. She oftentimes gets a lot of value here. It's just a question how you want to start into this. And Genji, of course, is extremely fast with the rotations that he has. He's extremely mobile, and he can always try to cheese that boss a bit.
I feel like if SPT did not go with the Murden in that 1-2, that they would have set themselves drastically behind in this draft. Not only is Murden one of the best at backdooring the shrines on a map like Brax's Holdout, but he also deals pretty well into the Genji with his new double stun and being more predictable to land it. But beyond all else, we have seen what Expert is able to do. They've high priority onto the Murden, one of the highest in this entire tournament, and the synergy they displayed with the Genji. It was just a nice, kind of triple play here just within one pick.
No, also you're going to deny the polybomb that we've discussed with the Brightwing. Brightwing really being a big standout, I'd say, from this tournament, probably one of the biggest in total as she comes across here. So a denial, obviously a counter pick towards it as well, and that will work quite nicely also into that Sonya matchup.
A lot of wave clear there as well by picking up the Rhaegar synergy. It aids with having that kind of double melee assassin. But the biggest thing that I enjoy about the laning situation, or at least from some of the picks that we see so far of Expert, is they have a really strong opportunity to have unique laning and very fluid transitions between the two. Again, utilizing that Genji, but oftentimes it will be matched by the Brightwing and Murden in the 1-2 here of SPT.
Normally this is hovered for a certain reason on this map. Interesting to see that going down.
Yeah, right now I'm actually really interested in general. For Expert, I really feel this is exactly what they want right now. As you said, that they would have loved to take the Murder. They would have been in a great spot here, but at the same time now with Sonya all of a sudden, this is exactly the hero that they want for Theor Angel. They have him on the solo lane. They have wave play in form of Rhaegar now too. So I think from an opening into that draft, this is absolutely fantastic for Expert.
Nubarak is going to be banned out. What do we see as a response here for Expert?
First ban we've had on Nubarak?
I believe it is.
It might have been the second.
Really have not seen much of him this time.
I'll look down, but yeah. So obviously it's, they may want themselves a mage later on down the line. Very nice to be able to potentially get rid of that, but it's uncommon nowadays.
I don't want to get too wild here, but I want to put Cho'Gall out of the realm of possibility.
That's, yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. Cho'Gall, I would say no because they have to pick him right now.
I agree with you. Yeah. That is the biggest struggle, is it leaves the follow-up. But I just wanted to say, when I see that in Nubarak, do not run it past the Chinese region on Braxton. They will bust out the Cho'Gall and body some.
When I saw the Nubarak ban, I was like, okay, same thought process. It could be a Cho'Gall. But then again, if you pick Cho'Gall, the problem with Cho'Gall is you want to pick him as late as you possibly can so that you avoid counter picks. And that would be a very early one. Again, we have seen crazy strategies. We have stuff like this in the past, and it can be incredibly powerful, and it would work very well with what they already have. But Expert could follow up on that real quickly with counter him directly.
What are you thinking here? Brightwing and Meridian would obviously love to go for this Valo. Some show on that one.
Would allow for a lot of pressure and essentially force a response to the laning situation for the members of Expert. But we've seen what the Vala can do, what a Sonya Genji can do to a Vala very, very quickly, as Expert was able to display in the last series.
Okay.
But they go with the Malthael and the Lucio. This pulls a bit away from the kind of laning situation I would have liked to see from SPT, considering the high Murden and also the Brightwing. I feel like now that they have the mobility onto the Genji and the dominant laning situation of wave clear from Expert, these next two picks, as long as they're a good duo together and self-sustaining, that SPT has lost that advantage with that backdooring of the shrine that seems like they were committing to with their first two picks.
This is actually something they've done during the regular season as well, and they finalized that composition out with a Lunara. So definitely something they're comfortable with, something they've utilized in the past. How Expert respond with these final two picks.
We could still see that Chromie as well, because Genji is a hero that we usually see on Nick, but both AD, and Nick have played Genji and also Chromie in the past. So Expert has really started to work over the last few weeks on overlapping their hero pools on certain players so that they're a little bit flexible on to the end of the draft. So they could still flex into that if they wanted to.
Hoping we get ourselves a Tyrael here with these rotations.
There she is.
They bust out the Chromie, going to stick to the ETC instead. I just feel like it would have synergized a little bit better, but also, you know, ETC has nice, I mean, he's an amazing hero, obviously, and has a lot of appeal, but just Tyrael, again, for mobility and synergy with the composition is always a standout thing for me. I really adore any hero that can leap over those walls from bosses to make sure you just make those shrines a big problem.
So why was the Inubarak banned? What goes in this slot?
You could argue the Malthael was a big enough problem, but Inevitable End does secure quite a bit of time. They didn't want to pick a support that had a cleanse, so that might be the argument.
Yeah,
Single-handedly, just the Inevitable End isn't a long enough time to make the, you know, the pick worth it, but it doesn't feel like that's the case to me, or that it was worth it.
Also, if you research Expert, they have played a lot with the Nuburak during the phase 2 matches that they played, so they really like to dive in deep with the comp. And if you look at what they had at the time, you have Genji who can follow up with it, you have Sonya who can also move in, and Expert in particular has played a couple of blow-up comps in the past where they play with Sonya and Leap. So maybe that was something that SPT was just very afraid of. If Sonya goes into Leap and an Expert fully commits to a blow-up composition, lead the charge with the Nuburak, cocoon one of the healers, and all of a sudden try to get that kill. So it might just have been a safety ban where they are saying, we've seen them do that in the past. It's the one thing that we're a little bit scared of. Let's play it safe and see where we can get with this.
So the Leaming mixes in as well towards the end.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's like the missing piece in the puzzle here, right? So you got Malthael that's going to be padding people's health bars down, tenderizing, if you will, with that Reaper's Mark and Leaming, able to come in with that one shot for those resets. Only real thing that scares me here is there are a lot of threats with that Leaming. If she can't get that reset, Genji and Sonya just walk all over her.
My biggest concern is it feels like with, again, the priority in the 1-2 to get the control over to the shrines and then kind of backtracking with that with, it feels like the rest of their picks, their laning situation, by going to the Li Ming, they can't run a 2-1-2 anymore. So the Murden can't dance and match the dominant laning that we see out of the members of Expert. They pick the Chromie, which is going to be beneficial at deterring any advantage whatsoever that they may, by some kind of miracle, be able to pick up in this laning situation. So they are banking on not failing until the 10 mark, and I think Expert's composition is too good in the laning situation for that to be a reliable strategy.
Hello?
I'm really confident in Expert's ability to get the first victory in this game, just simply because they have a composition they are incredibly comfortable with. They have comfort picks for every single one of their players, and I think they walked away with everything they want, and I think the confidence alone is going to push them to a win.
All right, time to head over to our commentary team here for the final series of opening week here for the group stage. Who is going to advance onto Blizzcon? We're about to find out.
Alrighty, this cast will be brought to you with some love, so thank you to everyone at home that made sure to free Grubby. You're the best. Grubby, this next round here for the best of 3 series here, game number 1. How excited are you for these two heroes?
It's good to be here again, and it's good to see this final match, this decider here between Expert and SPT. Expert's draft looks pretty potent, but SPT had a pretty good series as well. Let's see who will be able to do it.
Yeah, I'm excited to watch that top lane there, the Malthael versus the Sonya. Let's go ahead and jump into it here. Game number 1 in the best of 3 series, and we get to go to Praxis Holdout, which I actually really enjoy watching. That's one of the reasons why I watch North America, because we see so much Praxis there, and we get it occasionally in Europe.
Yeah, we see that map, and we were even wondering, all right, who selected this map? Is it going to be Expert? But it was actually SPT. And the Cho'Gall memories of when they played that before in the HGC China. But anyway, let's talk about, you know, the approach for both the teams here. Chromie, not a great pusher, but she needs to hit her skill shots in order to ramp up her damage into the mid game. And so one of the best counter strategies against Chromie is to not match her in lane.
Yeah.
Just go to the other lane, apply pressure. Every time you see Chromie show up, just go to the other lane. She doesn't push that hard, so it's okay to ignore the lane. However, SPT doesn't have that much siege damage. So I wonder whether SPT will be able to employ this strategy, Trixler.
Yeah, I'll be watching towards SPT, the Murden in particular, to be the one that applies pressure, not through wave clear, but through kill potential on Team Expert. Can he control that front line well? I think it will be difficult. You have ETC, and you have Sonya, and you have Genji, who can fling across the map there and jump on a target. In fact, Genji is used pretty often as a way to shut down that top lane. But because of how our two teams have drafted, we're actually going to have a 2-on-2.
Yeah, so that's pretty smart because either solo lane would get punished. Athera Angel talked about this in the team interview as well, that it's so rare to see a dedicated one-on-one lane. You see a lot of people coming in to heal the solo laner. You see a lot of people coming to bully the other solo laner. And as such, the solo lane as a concept at pro heroes play is pretty much over. So people that play Hero League should take note of this as well. Help out your solo laner. Do a good deed for the day.
And they will definitely respond in kind. They'll be doing their best in that lane, and of course, giving you a spot where you can focus on that 4-man on the bottom side. And Team Expert did that. They had the Rhaegar go to the top there, hang out with Sonya, make sure that they had a tug-of-war that Sonya could win, even help push a little bit, and then Rhaegar rotated down to the bottom side to help out in the fight, which allowed for some damage there on Lucio, and even got him low.
Bit of damage on Misaka as well, but his instincts were good. ADRD on the Chromie, not Nick this time, as Nick will be floating around on that Genji. He's trying to get his stacks there. Not that deep breathing quest that we see ADRD play sometimes, as you were mentioning before we launched into this game. But the standard Time Walker's Pursuit into Bronze Talents.
Yes, a very solid build, especially when you have an ETC on the field with you. The setup for that power slide into the Dragon's Eye combo, into a Bronze Talent combo, is pretty darn devastating. So especially in the early game on Braxis Holdout, where you know you're going to have that laning. You know people are going to be in the area around the beacons.
Like the early Hellbat camp prioritization by Team Expert helps out a lot. Big move here on Malthael, goes down. Suddenly Team Expert comes out like a surprise party from every angle. Surprise! And Malthael gets eliminated. Expert can use this by applying major pressure with those Hellbats to take down one, maybe even two towers.
You know, I think Malthael is one of those heroes that just does not appreciate a good surprise. He's probably upset about that. Probably going to go into an emo state, and we'll probably have him torment some souls later. But that surprise is great here for Team Expert. The 4-man jump onto a target, and it's opened the floodgates. SPT is trying to answer back, but Misaka is in trouble, getting caught on the side. A phase shift will have to come out just to make sure he stays alive. But Team Expert, they just disengage.
As a general rule, whenever you try to get a kill in a rotation, if you can't get it faster than 4 seconds, you should generally abandon it, as the other team has time to react in kind. They will be converging on your location, and a counter attack and a counter kill becomes increasingly likely. Again, this is good at pro play and Hero League and Quick Match as well. Try for a bit, 4 seconds, doesn't work, back off. And Expert shows this discipline like a master, of course.
That's a good point. I think a lot of people miss the value of getting a hero low. That's essentially a kill itself. You don't need that tally mark. Misaka, look at him. He's effectively low right now. He's away from the fight. He's basically killed off. He's just not respawning.
Exactly.
And that allows Team Expert to grab the beacon.
So now you've gained 10 seconds. What are you going to do with those 10 seconds? You have full life. Do you commit a full HP character to try and finish off someone who's 5%? You're basically giving away your lead. Nice move there, getting Misaka with that Dragon's Eye. Chromie, of course, gets her talents earlier on. That's a lot of damage on Misaka. He's getting healed up by Brightwing, by Lucio, by his second wind. And but that was pretty darn close.
That it was. Misaka getting low there. Almost saw, too, on Lucio, able to dodge on the Sandblast. The Sandblast into a Bronze Talons actually connects on Lucio. It's half his health bar. He has to be careful and dance around the area. Luckily for him, he has mobility to help him out. Now, Thorough coming in for a big flank, but Thoroughs don't even need it. Team Expert's like, go back to top lane. What are you doing down here?
Yeah, but it's a cool option, right? Just this concept of Sonya suddenly coming in, a little bit more hard, crowd control there than Rhaegar would have had. Plus, he was busy on the Hellbat camp. A very dynamic laning approach from Team Expert. Rhaegar doing a camp, going top. Sonya with the potential spear there, coming in with the flank. And it's the option of using her utility to get a kill. Now, Malthael, once again, not enjoying the surprise party still. He likes his life certain, just as his death.
Team Expert just has the movement right now. The reason why those 2 kills were even available is because of how Thorough has handled that top lane. He's hung out in the bushes, playing around with that visibility that SPT had. So probably didn't call him as MIA, assuming that he was in the bush on the top side, because Rhaegar was still there, and Team Expert gets a kill out of it, also rotates to the top, and gets another one, which allowed for them to grab the entire beacon progress. They are a level ahead and have a Zerg wave pushing the top lane.
Exactly. Getting those kills together, stitched together like clockwork, chain kills. Team Expert is able to get that 100% Zerg wave. Now note how Murden is excellent at actually tanking these Zerg waves. They don't even get to these structures. Unlike some of the boss mercs, some of the boss monsters on different battlegrounds, these mercs will entirely focus heroes whenever that's possible. They will not march straight onto towers. So Halting them is very nice. Misaka now taking a lot of damage again. He will jump right into the Dragon Breath from Chromie.
ADRD took him to the library and checked him out. He read that book completely, knew Muradin was jumping away. I also like this maneuver from Team Expert. They let the Zerg wave push naturally by itself in the top side, knowing they would get the fort, but going to the bottom and sieging forward. Their siege isn't the best, but with no opposition for them, they were able to get the fort low and set up that kill on the Muradin. But SPT is wanting to answer back. Melody looking for a combo, but Bad Benny, he is somehow living. Finally, he gets taken out.
And it was so close to get Melody C as well, but an inch too far might as well be a kilometer too far. Brightwing is alive and will heal herself back up to full. Bad Benny will be punished for his transgression. He'll be in the body bank for a bit, but that's a good result for the first objective here. Double forts down.
That's right, 2 forts being down. Now, as we get a couple moments to talk here, the perfect defense that was mentioned by Caldor on the analyst panel is very important as a Genji player at level 7. This gives you the ability to cheese the boss. See, high attack speed that comes in from the boss will be able to be reflected straight towards that boss and you can burn it down. So now SPT has to play around the idea of using the perfect defense and going for the boss while level 10 is available for expert.
Yeah, so will SPT deign to contest this boss? They do not have their level 10s. In fact, they're helping a little bit with the damage. Thank you very much. We took this boss half a second earlier than we would have otherwise.
We're all friends here at Blizzcon. I mean, might as well help an enemy out occasionally.
The enemy of your enemy is your friend, right?
That's right. Someone smart said that sometime in history, so there it is. If not, we'll at least give that to Grubby. Team Expert, 10-9 right now. A boss willing to push. Forts down. Everything going well for them. They're even advancing a little bit forward on the battleground, hoping to help this boss push a little bit. It's not the most ridiculous boss by itself, but you can use this as cover to try and break down a keep wall.
Now let's talk about how SPT could potentially get back into this game. First order of the day is going to be to get their experience total back up. This is no easy matter. Look where the top lane is all the way pushing. The Bruiser Cap is actually halting minions, which are basically little pockets of experience of Team Expert away from SPT. In order to soak that experience, one of the members of SPT would need to go all the way to the north lane. In the absence of a fort there, that would be dangerously overextended. So SPT at this point will do best to stick together, inch out one more wave at the bottom, and Brightwing should even portal in. She's in a very safe location, practically doing nothing, just stopping a potential top fort attack. And she has to come down right here. ETC will miss the stage dive, but this should be the fight that SPT would want to get. Anyway, the Zerg wave is already taken.
That's right. Team Expert was using the stage dive to see if they could force something, but this does allow for them to be in a group of 5 anyway, so it's not really that big of a waste, but many might say, why would you try to stage dive in there? Just want to be a unit as 5, try to push in while SPT has that level 10. Now, how will the defense pop out here for SPT? Looking at their defense, they have Malthael on the side, who is slow but decent against a wave clear, and Lean Ming Spoke. Other than that, this could prove to be very difficult.
Yeah, I mean, this is... In the end, it is a very teamfight-oriented draft. Tormented Souls is going to be the major deal here. Will dodge most of that Chromie damage. Malthael is the key, but Brightwing goes down.
Yes, Genji going for more. Grabs Li Ming on the side. Nick coming in here, looking at Saw. Can he grab it? No, he gets locked down by Masaka. The Zerg wave continues to hit the keep. A thorough. He wants a Muradin, though. He hits the beard with a couple of slams, and there it is. Saw trying to escape, getting out with a sliver of his health, but the keep, not so lucky.
Not so lucky at all. We've still got a bunch of Broodlords here, Guardians in fact, that are still battling down on the base of SPT. Probably not enough siege damage to take down the core, but this was a job well done. Good days of work for Team Expert. They shall live to fight another day.
Well, Team Expert pulls away 13-11, only losing 1 in that 1-for-4 exchange, I believe, there. So solid for them. They come up to the top and they defend that push that was coming their way without their fort even taking a lick of damage. Team Expert is in a wonderful position for this next beacon phase. And SPT, they're at a point now where they may have to start making some aggressive plays.
Yeah, even crazy ones. I would not mind. Just set traps, just attack. Even things that are very poorly positioned, fights that are poorly positioned, talents down, at this point seem like, I think, the best blessing that SPT can hope for, because they will lose effortlessly if they continue to play passively. Look at their comp. They have very little wave clear to begin with. Their composition is not designed to defend Zerg waves. They're supposed to win it on account of Brightwing's global, Muradin's heal ability,
Yeah.
jumping over walls to get to other beacons. They can never be in that position again.
SPT are definitely struggling, and here they are trying to make a play on Bad Benny. Suck comes in, wants to bring the knockback in, but Bad Benny is making some juice here, trying to outplay Misaka here, wanting to dodge out on that Storm Bolt that could come in. So finally decides to engage, and will use Tormented Souls, but Team Expert casually walks away.
Yeah, that actually made sense, the sound barrier. It has a small wind-up, and it looked like Malthio might get power slid, as you could tell that Bad Benny was holding that cooldown. He did a double face melt, but he held the power slide. This is the hallmark of some of the better ETCs, waiting for that opportunity. He was playing off of Chromie's cooldowns. Look how fast Genji actually takes this boss. And time trap!
Gonna try and go for the Emerald win. Can they get it here? They do pop it in, but Thuro is holding the base. Stage dive jumping in here. Bad Benny's turning up to 11. He knocks away Misaka. So trying to hold on to the point, but he is just falling as Nick continues to slice and dice there. He's cutting onions here because SPT is crying.
Oh, what a bloodbath. Team Expert cleans up the boss. The entire team there of SPT as well, with a Dragon's Breath that hit 4 members, stage dive. Likewise, this was a hero damage padding heaven for Team Expert here. And now they have a boss, they have the Bruisers, and they will get double beacon progress as well.
This game looks like it might just be over. Can SPT find something deep within themselves? In 8 seconds, they will have Sound Barrier. In 20 seconds, Tormented Souls will be up. These are instrumental for SPT to have a chance and a fight. Misaka just jumps right on in. He's targeting Bad Benny. They want to fight this before the boss gets to the keep and the Braxis Wave joins in.
This is the last-ditch effort, potentially, by SPT. Team fight has to work out, but Malthio will get shredded like a piece of shredded chicken by a Thero. Misaka will get power slid as well. Can he get away? Emerald Wind might help.
The dragon on the side here, using it. We're going to be fine here. The other dragon, though, jumps into a big glass cannon here. Going to be able to hold for the moment. Finally turning around. Here comes the Sandblast. Does not connect, but Melody has to pull away. Zinjoao trying his best to get out of the fight, but Brian will fall to a wolf bite, and it looks like Li Ming barely getting out with, 5 HP. But look at this top lane. The core is just falling here as SPT will lose their first match against Team Expert.
What a convincing performance by Team Expert here in the final match of the day. It's best of 3. They take the first map, the first battleground here. Winner goes to Blizzcon. Loser will be eliminated. And Expert looked very dominant there, but I don't say this often, Trickster, but I feel like this was an extremely tilted draft. The only way that SPT would be able to win is if they never give up an objective, they get kills, and they just stay ahead and snowball that, because their wave clear was nearly non-existent.
Well, didn't work out there for SPT. Let's see if our analysts agree with you here as we head back over to the race.
Can't speak for myself, I guess, but how about we ask the gentleman? That's right. As Expert take the first game win here at Caldor, and pretty clean cut. A lot of cuts from Genji.
Yeah, that too. Bit disappointing by the Chinese team there. We talked about the draft already at the start, but Expert played it extremely well. And I mean, I'm going to be frank here. At some point, it felt like SPD was just randomly pressing R. That Malthiel Tormented Soul at the top lane chasing Muradin was extremely awkward. Shortly afterwards, Lucio said, like, you know what, if you press it, then I do mine too. Some of those moves were a little bit odd.
They were definitely kind of odd, but I feel like even taking it back, like we were talking about the draft, essentially it felt very focused on having a 1-4 for some reason. It felt like SPT was really assuming that the laning phase was going to be played how Braxis holdout was played on initial release, and very quickly has that not, we learned that that is not the proper way to be able to play it. That there are there's not one exact laning situation, but the 1-4, you can only play that whenever you know your opponent is going to draw so much aggro in one avenue, and even then, I would say it's probably the riskiest approach to a draft. So they failed to kind of have all the tools necessary to be successful in the laning situation of Braxis.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of those tools, lack of wave clear was the biggest thing for me personally. And then you got the boss control, and we saw in that final boss fight, just the ability to go time trap, slowing sands, you jump in, everyone dies, right? So, I mean, you got the Genji, obviously we know how well he does with the reflect on the boss to eliminate that, but the biggest thing for me in that draft was Expert ran the solo support. They have enough pressure with their comp to allow them to bait out so many cooldowns defensively from the lineup of SPT. So it was a case of we go in, we bait out the Emerald Wind, the Sandbear in your case as well. And then if that doesn't work out, we just re-engage, we force the fight. The draft, as you say, a little bit lopsided. Expecting something completely different going into game 2, if that's not too tilted based off this one.
Let's see what they can do in just a few moments here as we go to a short break. But when we return, game number 2 here between Team Expert and, of course, SPT.
Some of the better ETCs waiting for that opportunity. He was playing off of Chrome's cooldowns. Look how fast Genji actually takes this boss. And time's up!
Gonna try and go for the Emerald Wind. Can they get it here? They do pop it in, but Thuro is holding the base. Same time jumping in here. Bad Biddy's turning it to 11. He knocks away Masaka. So trying to hold on to the point, but he is just falling as Nick continues to slice and dice there.
17 Heroes Global Championship Finals are brought to you in part by Republic of Gamers, Intel, T-Mobile, and NVIDIA.
Nick channeling is in a slap chop there as he was able to slice and dice very nicely at the very end at that boss play. We're going to be heading to game number 2. Don't know what map we're going to be on just yet, but we're about to find out. Battleground choice is...
Wait, what?
Tomb of the Spider Queen.
SPT is going to be the one choosing Tomb of the Spider Queen.
That's what it says, Dread, yes.
Like a bit of a suicidal move.
I don't know if I would say suicidal, but definitely a hell of a risk.
I mean, you just choose straight up your opponent's, one of your opponent's best battlegrounds and say, okay, maybe the thought process we have to play you here. No, not even that makes sense. Like,
I mean, I was looking at it saying it has to be Battlefield of Eternity. That's a map that they do so well on. It forces aggression. It's not about macro. It's not really about laning, which is really what severely impacted them last game. They go to Tomb and go, okay, this is what we want to do.
It feels like clearly a preference because they did do this against Soul Torturers as well in the first series of the day, if I recall.
It's just that out of all the map selections we've seen out of Expert so far throughout the tournament and the track record that we know they have within the region, Tomb of the Spider Queen is a European map, it feels like. And the fact that they have chosen only Tomb of the Spider Queen, the fact that SPT is taking it is a very high risk. I do have a bit of a theory as to why we might see this from other than the comfort level, that there is an argument to a strategy to picking your opponent's best map if you think that you are pretty competitive with it, to swap the pick order so that your opponent has to give too much information, essentially picking those 3 before the secondary ban phase, and that alone you feel like you'll gain enough competitive advantage in the draft with that information that it's worth the pick. That is the only major argument I can see here for SPT.
But I would argue that this is something you do either in a best of 5 or in the first map of a best of 3. And not when you are map behind.
It does feel like, you know, maybe a little bit too late to be able to move that out in a best of 3 format. Ultimately here, though, SPT feel like it is the tool, or it is the decision that is going to be able to make this at least a game number 3 versus Expert.
I mean, you can even look at ADRD right there. He's smiling. The guy's happy. He's thinking, they take us to Tomb? Are they crazy?
It's like a kid in a candy store.
ADRD usually doesn't laugh.
Yeah.
This is scary because I haven't seen that before.
Yeah. You're in trouble when ADRD smiles.
When ADRD starts smiling, you know something has gone seriously wrong for the other team.
I wonder if that's because they're theory, like the fact that they're taking this long in this pick. They kind of theory crafting down the road of a rather unique composition after a dominant game number 1.
There's a couple of things that I'm thinking about. First of all, usually they are the ones who pick the map. As you said, normally they pick the map, and then it's all about, okay, what is banned out against us? Usually would expect a Medivh ban, but I think one of the thoughts they probably also had was, is this going to be one of these high prioritized Ragnaros plays again from SPT that we have seen in the past? And if they don't ban Medivh now, then they have to pick it early, I hope.
Yeah. If they don't ban Medivh, then chuck the pen away.
That was audible. You didn't have to say anything, I think.
Okay, thank you.
Another thing that I want to bring up about the selection of Tomb is that we've seen, I believe, in all games so far of Expert, they've gone into the Tracer route. And though, yes, Tracer has been successful for them, I will argue that a team that is effective at making sure the Webweaver phase are not too successful and prioritize a composition on heavy defense early on will be at least able to go toe-to-toe against Expert with that style of strategy. I feel like we've already seen that displayed with Soul Torturers and not getting as much out of that situation as they wanted. Yes, they were successful in winning the game, but there were a couple of moments where, with how big of a lead they had for the first couple of minutes, there's no reason that their opponent should have been able to make it there, other than the fact that Tomb of the Spider Queen's a, kind of weird map.
Other thoughts? Whilst we just wait?
I'm just simply really scared for them because Dredger's mentioned the Tazza Tracer, and that's a combo that Expert now used a couple of times. It's all coming down to what exactly is going to be banned and first pick on the side of SPT. Because when we're looking at what they're doing right now, you kind of have to ban out Medivh. If you don't do that, you all of a sudden open up a whole new kind of worms that Expert can throw at you, and they are happy to do it. There's nothing to hide here. Everybody knows they prioritize Medivh. Everybody knows they have strategies around him. So if they get an opportunity like that, they will take it. If you ban Medivh, then you still open up potential Tazza first pick, even Tracer first pick if you really wanted to on the side of Expert. And then it's the question, how exactly do the Chinese react to that? Because we have seen a lot of Tracer play by now without Tazza just heading into the double support, but even just a Tazza first pick is insanely good. It's not only about the support on an auto attacker, it's also the vision alone that it gives you on this map, the control over the 2 turning points, the wave clear, just everything that is needed on this map is unified in Tazza to some extent.
So my pen is safe. Medivh is banned away. First pick for Expert. As you say, yeah, Tesla obviously so strong on this map in particular.
And also tanks again.
That
Other
too.
options could go once more into Muradin.
Well, we've seen Muradin a few times in that first pick role, but
Yes,
Tesla
Tazza.
is just too safe, it's too standard.
Because now that you pick Tazza, you basically deny Tazza Tracer combo to SPT. SPT is now thinking, okay, do we have to pick Tracer? Do they take it? Do we draft something against Tracer? And if they do neither, then Expert is sitting in a spot where they can combo off Tazza with whatever they want. They can again use a Thero on Tracer. They can throw Tracer on Nick. They can play a Vala comp. There's like...
All of it is a beautiful choke.
It's insane.
It's a beautiful choke, if you think about it. Like, Tassadar shields, we banned Zarya, we forced you to ban Medivh. Where are all your shields if you all want to get in the Tracer? It's kind of crazy.
There is maybe going back to the history of Chinese strategies and different things that they've done to be able to make up for, you know, some of the macro play that they have had in the past. 2-1-2 was the first, like China was the first region to bring out a 2-1-2 into a heavy kill composition with heavy macro or wave clear being dependent. They might be able to rely on that. It's far less successful than on maps like Dragonshire, for instance. But it is an option. They commit to a Genji and a Rhaegar. Rhaegar will be able to aid with that wave clear, as we know. But the Genji, a bit of a place on a map like Tomb. Immediately, we've got to be looking at SPT committing to an all-in kind of dive-focused composition after that rotation.
So Tracer and what?
Yeah.
You have the initiation. You have the post 7. You can just pretty much lock down one-shot anybody. If they're always put it like on a clinic on how to make that happen with Bad Benny and against Soul Torturers. If they didn't commit to that, because they have picked Muradin every game, I believe, before the secondary ban phase, or you've seen some traction for the drafts that Expert's been involved in.
Expert's probably now in a spot where, like, we don't even know how to deal with this. There is a reason why first pick is so strong. Normally, you are always first pick. Every single time a team loses has a choice between, do I go first pick, which gives me an advantage in a draft, or do I go for the map choice because I feel that on a certain map I have a better strategy and I'm way stronger than my opponent. Expert has very rarely found themselves in a spot where they get their preferred map and first pick.
Yeah.
Normally how this goes is the team that goes up against Expert bans out Medivh, they have to ban out Tassadar, and then the game begins. In this setup now all of a sudden Expert as the first pick gets Tassadar, they now pick Tracer, they have Muradin as we expected because it is just so absolutely obvious, and they get insane picks right now. So I think the only reason why they even delay these picks is that they have to ask themselves, this has to be a trap.
It's too good to be true.
Yeah, exactly. It's too good to be true. And I'm still waiting for the trap. And if SPT doesn't have one, then they have a problem.
I'm just thinking right now, if you're Expert, what are you looking to ban away? I mean, what immediately springs to mind for me, if you're going to try and go for this Tracer, will be the Tyrael, even the Uther. Anything that can negate, as you can see, obviously, Tassadar, Zarya off the board, Medivh off the board. What other sort of protection tools do you have available at your disposal to draft?
For Tracer now?
To counter the Tracer, I mean, at this stage, right?
Her.
At this stage, you've got the Genji only.
How does a variant ban sound?
I mean,
I'm not sure if I would actually commit on this map to banning Varian. I'm normally a huge fan of Varian against Tracer. The problem is that he has an insane lack of wave clear. And they already don't have... They have mostly wave clear on Rhaegar. And if they want to go for Varian, they go very much into the one thing where they're saying, hey, we need to eliminate Tracer. But then if Expert drafts around it and drafts more wave clear, they can just simply play the map. So I'm not sure if... I wouldn't ban Varian. They don't. And I don't feel that SPT is going to pick it.
The only thing I could really see telegraphed by that Malfurion ban was that they wanted to go for the Greymane. Obviously, it patches them with the Moonburn for that wave clear, which they desperately need at this stage. But the Greymane, typically speaking, gets countered by that. You got the Root, you got the Twilight Dream. You can sort of tell the archetype that SPT are going for. It's very all-in.
I've spent about the last 5 minutes trying to figure out whether or not what this pick is going to be. And the biggest thing I want to see from SPT is, I can't think of what the hero is going to be, but something that can draw so much siege aggro, but is not vulnerable to the Tracer die potential and rotations. The only way I see SPT recovering from the transition they've made into this draft is to make sure that they have so much pressure on the structures that the Tracer is, you know, something they can neglect or at least not pay too much attention to. And like Sergeant Hammer, but vulnerable, Sylvanas vulnerable, Azaria was banned out, cleverly so. It's the only thing that fills all those parameters that I can think of. It's still indicating that there is, you know, that kind of hyper carry, but ultimately I don't think the Volo is going to really cut it here in this type of situation.
I mean, I don't think it can be something as mundane as a Vala. Kel'Thuzad. Like, I don't know, Kel'Thuzad gets blown up pretty heavily. If you have Rhaegar Morales, you might be able to keep him alive. I'm really trying to think outside the box here. What has enough damage output and enough pressure onto the composition of Team Expert that it would compensate for all the problems that we are seeing on SPT's side right now? Because I just don't think that a Vala or something along the lines of Lunara is going to cut it for them.
I want to
hit me with a Jimmy.
Oh, I mean, I was going to think out the realm of possibilities and think maybe the Jaina gives you Siege, gives you the Ring of Frost for the ETC Mosh Pit potential. You've got the Morales to try and protect you with a Safeguard. I mean, it patches a little bit as to what they need. I feel it's better than the KT to a degree, but still, I'm not sold on the idea, Dread.
I'm not sold on the Raynor idea either. Like, that was the only other thing, maybe like a Hyperion pressure with a tri-lane that's going to draw so much aggro, but then you're suffering so much in other avenues.
Don't get me wrong, Skimmy, by the way. I'm not saying that I would love Kel'Thuzad and think he's going to solve the problems. No. I'm really just desperate for anything that I'm like, what could it be?
Zul'jin is not the best, but at least he has the opportunity to self-survive on his own when Tracer ends up popping. Like, I would rather that than the Vala. I would much rather than any other. I want to see the Zul'jin.
I would actually agree on that. More so than a Vala pick from them now.
It took me 5 minutes to think of Zul'jin. How did that take that long? My goodness.
Well, we haven't really seen him, despite the changes.
Yeah, that is a good point.
We had one game on the first day, I feel, and that was
We don't talk about that game.
Okay.
What every single team was saying, why would you pick
like
Zul'jin?
Indiana Jones 4? Doesn't exist.
Yeah, exactly.
Why would you pick Zul'jin when there are far better options?
Aliens.
Is this the parameter? Is this the parameter when Zul'jin looks attractive? It seems so channeled and so disgusting.
Even if he ends up getting picked, look at the laning situation.
Look how long they're waiting. They don't know either.
It's gonna be 6, 5, 4, 3.
No, just no. Just no.
Very anticlimactic. I don't think this is it.
To be fair,
I mean, it is a double support. You have the support for Vala here. ETC is the best frontliner to play with a hyper carry Vala, simply because you can create the space. So it is a strong Vala composition. For a hyper carry Vala, this is a very strong setup to guard her.
Yes.
I just think that it doesn't trade well into what Expert has. If you have it against another draft and you banned out the Task Tracer combo or got rid of a few of these things, I would absolutely say you can work with that. But I feel Expert really has to make a couple of pretty brutal mistakes in order to lose this.
We're painting a bleak picture here for SPT, but I think the caveat to all of this is that they just need to play out of their minds with this composition, something like that.
I think this is the best way to put it. It's not that the composition is poor by any means. You know, it's clean cut. It lacks a little bit of wave clear considering the map would be my only downside looking at it. It just feels like with the dominance that we saw in the last game coming out from Expert that you need a wild card, a bit of flavor, something that is going to really catch them off guard. And right now, running this style composition doesn't feel like the case. A lot of them are vulnerable to the Task Tracer that Expert is obviously very, very skilled with.
And that was my point exactly, right? You know, you see their performance in game number 1 and you're thinking, okay, they need something completely different. Yes, this is cookie cutter. Yes, this is standard comfort picks, I'm sure. But as you say, the flair really isn't there for them to try and trump the performance of game 1.
It's time to go to our commentators, guys. We can talk about it afterwards to see the results as SPT is trying to fight back and keep themselves alive as they try and march on to BlizzCon. Will they be able to do it? We're about to find out.
That is right, Caleris. SPT may be on their last chance here in the tournament as we try to go to Anaheim BlizzCon. It's Morales and Vala versus Task Tracer, Grubby.
Yeah, I must say I was kind of expecting that Zul'jin to come in as well, but the draft is more generic than maybe we anticipated, and that's fine. Being normal is just fine in 2017, so I think they have a lot to work with.
Wholesome statements here from Grubby. Let's go ahead and go to game number 1 in its best of 3 series as we go to Tomb of the Spider Queen. Can SPT pull it off, man? Trying to at least go to a game number 3. If they do not, Team Expert will be our 3rd European team to make it to next week.
It's a great swashbuckling composition here for SPT, and that's some of the things that they do best. This is the #1 seeded team from China, ladies and gentlemen. They are on match point. Lose, and they will be out. Win, and they will go to Blizzcon. Win 2 games in a row, of course. That will be the deal. Potentially their last game of BlizzCon. Qian Xiao on Vala. We got Melody C here playing Genji. Together they will have to carry the big damage dealing for SPT.
That they will. The wind up into the engage there from the Genji. Now, Vala's still thinking about her level 1 here. I was a bit curious to see if we would be having an adaptation from SPT. Maybe the multi-shot build. The problem is you lose out on that Hungering Arrow that can be devastating against a Tracer that may overstep.
Yep. I mean, we've seen some Hungering Arrows before, following Tracer very far across all her blinks. Travel slowly it may, but it will find its mark, like a homing missile. Nice Stormbolt there. Safeguard will prevent a lot of damage. Saka misses the power slide, will become a target in turn. ETCs need to be very judicial with that ability usage.
Well, getting an oldie one here. Hot Pursuit will be the pickup for our Vala player. We'll keep an eye on her build. You can still run the Hungering Arrow at level 4. You know, you're getting that movement speed, which is one of the major things that you want with that Vala, being able to kite backwards. Team Expert on the inside, pretty standard pickups. Murden going with that Stormbolt at level 1. Now let's watch this laning phase. Typically, you got that solo laners in the bottom, but with Tracer leaning being in, we're going to have Team Expert maybe put a few in the bottom, rotate a little bit more often, or at least have Tassadar nowhere near that Tracer.
Help your solo laner. It's Help Your Solo Laner Day here in the HGC. And that's definitely very helpful, as otherwise, Nick, you know, Melody C, they could be under threat. There's a lot of visitors here. In fact, the north lane is more empty, and there goes down Genji. Tracer finds her first mark. Deflect was not available.
A thorough. With the clever movement there, use the blink to act as if he's going in for the pulse bomb, backs up, and then after deflect is used, goes in for the kill.
So smart.
Playing his opponent there. Team Expert continues to rotate and help out their solo laners, or of course all 4 teammates, as they put 5 in the middle here, pushing back and attempting to make sure to stay aggressive on the field. A Stormbolt hits on Rhaegar, but we have Soap playing safe.
I like to call that the accordion style, where you weave into the middle lane
like
with
it.
everything.
Yeah.
And then back out to the top and the bottom again. You can do that if you help north and south with clearing fast, so that there are no XP minions to be missed. Meet S5 middle, do something good, maximum 5 seconds, and then return to your position. Melody C getting taken out here. Stormbolt, pure as crystal here, will take out Genji once again. Definitely overextended there. Try to make it a 2v1, and suddenly a 4 versus 2. This is Tomb of the Spider Queen, ladies and gentlemen, the closest triple lane map of the entire map pool.
And Team Expert continues to get a couple kills on Genji, 2-0. The multi-shot coming online here for Vala, so she is intending to be one of the strongest wave clears for SPT. It's helpful at level 4, and then 7, of course, when you get the expert damage. But later on, you'll also have the chance to continue building into the multi-shot. Get slow set up there. Chase that Uther and that Murden. If we ever find a spot that SPT does find a fight they can move into.
Yeah, and finally, it's a little bit more burst earlier on than Hungering Arrow. Finally, Hungering Arrow is more burst, but it has a quest component. This one does not. 10 hatred stacks, and your multi-shot is empowered with that level 4 punishment talent. So it's just a better early game talent. And hopefully they'll be able to use that to wrestle back a little bit of control away from Team Expert. They will need it.
Additional point, it helps soften up the opponents there. If you want to move in for that Genji, if 4 of them are grouped up and you grab that multi-shot. So it will require a different playstyle, but still it's definitely viable. And Vala gets hit with a pulse bomb as a thorough moves on in. Not even Morales could do enough to save her.
Such a far cry away from Team Expert's game against Ballistics. Of course, Tassadar was on the other side.
Yep.
Now, like 2 long-lost friends, Tassadar and Tracer are reunited. And they work together so well. Look at what they're doing. So many successful enterprises already. 3 kills to Team Expert's name.
Grubby is definitely a fan of the Tassadar Tracer combo.
Oh, I
what
love
it can bring
it.
to the table.
I love it.
That is true here, as we have Giants being grabbed, and there's also a tournament available for Team Expert. And they're working on the bottom side. I think they were trying to simultaneously grab the Giants as well as get the turn-in, but SPT walks down and gets the interruption before that level 7 hit. So that does slow down the turn-in from Team Expert. This is actually very typical EU. We haven't seen much of it here in this tournament, but in the league itself, a lot of teams try to get this first turn in, and then as soon as they can, just get as many gems as possible for 2 turns in a row. That'll give you a nice talent advantage, but also open up the field widely, which is great for Tracer.
Hard to get away from Tracer if you don't have your front walls. Now let's see what Team Expert can get done with this. Big mistake by Misaka. Power slide misses spectacularly. Now with the pulse bomb, Safeguard will keep Misaka alive, but keep in mind, Morales is low on energy and doesn't have Safeguard cooldown available. Misaka is still low. Stay here at your own peril. Bad Benny is looking for the angle on Misaka.
Experts, they smell blood in the water. They're watching that Morales. They know she's low on energy. They're pushing as much as they can. Then Zhao is forced to pull back and try to hold this choke a little bit, but that allows Team Expert to step up with the Web Weaver and hit damage here on the ETC. Finally, with Saw getting some energy back, Team Expert will have to pull away, but you could see Expert wanting to push the envelope.
Yeah, and Expert is waiting for those cooldowns really well. I really have to avoid saying expertly because I don't mean to pun, but they did do so in such a manner. Finally realizing that an opportunity doesn't present itself, they rotate to the mid lane. They're here with 5, with that accordion style, pushing down the mid fort. They probably won't get it entirely because SPT has also shown up. But altogether, not a bad result for Team Expert. Nice Stormbolt, mid-jump.
Lands it there. Melody's still fine, though. Safeguard comes out, and so will be able to use some cooldowns to keep him alive. Now, this is where SPT needs to make a decision. Do they want to hold on and try to passively soak the level 10? Hang on here, as Masaka may have overstepped again. Goes in for a power slide. They're aiming for the Tracer. He's going to land a recall and get away just fine here with a Thorough being backed up by supports. But SPT needs to decide. Do they want to try and force a turn-in? Do they want to try and force a couple fights now before 10 hits? Or do they want to be passive and wait till 10 when they get their Dragon Blade set up?
So it looks like SPT will need another minute at least to get level 10, and Expert will reach it within the next 25 seconds. And that means SPT needs to make a judgment call. Will Expert have enough gems by then, or are we very good to wait until level 10? I think the answer is the second one. Take Bruiser, take the waves, and you can wait.
Yeah. You have Rhaegar set up for the Mercy camp on the left side. If you do think your opponents are getting the Web Weaver set in. And we have SPT flirting with the idea of a fight at the top, with 4 members being in this area. Team Expert is dominating this top lane and about to hit level 10. So SPT goes with a safe card. Yeah, pull back, wait around for a little bit here, and now it's all about soaking as safely as possible. Even look at Rhaegar on the bottom left. He is a few steps behind his fort down there. This is how important it is to play safe. And this also allows for him, if they get wind of Team Expert trying to go for a turn-in, when they do get the gems, they'll need another, what, 40 there? 40? They are going to be in a spot where Rhaegar can grab the Merc camp and get it to counter push the Web Weavers.
Yeah, exactly. I actually thought Rhaegar might be grabbing that Bruiser camp, but he didn't want to deplete his resources too much, apparently. There have been word of some of those Bruiser camp invades. He didn't want to run any risk.
Big jump in here from Bad Benny, finding Masaka.
Nice wave of force, yeah.
Stops the power slide here.
Morales is doing really good work, though. Saw there on Morales, saving everyone expertly. And the cool thing is, SPT has constantly been flirting with danger. Now, as that expression might indicate, it's dangerous.
It is.
But by flirting in such a way, they have kept Team Expert busy. They have kept them away from some of the major map objectives, such as bottom siege camp, the boss, and they have prevented Expert from exploiting their level 10 advantage by constantly showing themselves, tanking damage on Misaka, and then using Morales to heal him up. They have equalized, and now the turn-in. SPT has their best comeback into the game yet.
That's right. Flirting is okay, but don't fully commit until you're confident. With level 10 hitting here for SPT, they are ready to commit to the idea of moving in for a team fight. They now have their Mosh Pit. They still have Strafe here now. They also have Dragon Blade. You see them get more confident on the field. They step forward. Jin Zhao is ready to go for the auto attacks here as he works in some damage on the structures in the middle of the lane, but this is all to get this pushing and bring Team Expert towards this area. The real advantage should be in the off lanes, top and bottom.
As a choice of talent, by the way, I really like Strafe. It combines very well against Tracer and Li Ming, who are low HP but hard to hit generally. It's guaranteed damage on them when they're in range. and it really sets up people for a Dragon Blade. Generally, you'll turn on Dragon Blade when everyone is about half life on their health bars. That's when you turn it on, you try to clean up and get those resets. And so this is good synergy. SPT with a very strong push here at the top fort. So though, 37 gems. No, they can't afford
He's
to lose
slippery, though.
Rhaegar. Bad Benny and the juke.
He's juking and jiving, but the final auto attack, and that's going to be 34 gems, I believe. Masaka's going to
37
convert.
gems.
He picks him up. We're
Wow.
fine. Barely getting there. Soap being quite slippery, getting by this aggressive play coming his way, and gets the gems delivered towards his teammates.
Yeah, the funny thing is, had he not juked that Stormbolt, very likely the gems would have just expired, at least half of them, by the time that ETC came to pick them up. So even though he died, there was still some fancy footwork on those four-legged feet, and then finally delivering the gems to his ETC.
Problem now is that now ETC has over 50 gems sitting on him. Suddenly things become a little bit more difficult as that solo tank here for SPT. You have to be slightly more careful if you decide you want to go for a mosh pit. If you die, you need teammates nearby to grab them, or of course you don't want to die when you don't have the teammates nearby or you do lose them.
At least Rhaegar now as a solo laner has much less to lose. He's clearing those top web weavers. Very smartly, SPT delayed their bruiser cap so that it actually holds the middle web weaver. They also don't have a fort there, so there's not as much to lose. And so they can focus fully on the bottom lane here, which is the most dangerous lane.
Fort, low on ammo. Getting low here with the Giants helping out. Team Expert is going to commit. Bad Benny jumps in on top of Volley here. Morales playing safe enough to make sure she's not in too much trouble.
So from level 1 to 5, I really thought this was Expert's game, but SPT is looking amazingly resilient. We don't see the kills yet, but then again, let's talk about what we also haven't seen. Strafe, Moshpit, Ancestral, Dragonblade. They have not been using their full strength yet. They are trying to equalize on talents and on the map, and they finally have. But they are pretty resilient. They stay alive well, and so far that looks decent. Now let's see when SPT finally turns on the pain train, whether Expert will be able to withstand that. It has been a very heroic Devoid game so far, Trixley.
Yeah, they have been quite passive, and understandably so, being slightly behind. But you're right, they're now on a talent advantage, or not a talent advantage, but on even talents here with Team Expert. It's just a matter of trying to find an angle to go in for the fight, right? Bad Benny's doing such a good job of making sure to stop any chokes that could come their way, and Team Expert, as a team, has responded to Bad Benny's positioning well. They've always put themselves in a spot where they can get damage somewhere, but they have an exit route.
Now look at this. SPT is doing a 5-man top clear on about 5 minions. This shows the fear of Tracer. Nice double Stormbolt there by Bad Bunny. But all the lanes are pushed against SPT. It's near their keeps, and they're not clearing. This shows an incredible inclination to have a serious team fight right here, right now. If Expert plays it smart, they will completely make themselves scarce until level 16.
All about the poke here. Tassadar wants to make sure to delay when he can, and Li Ming as well. And they've done so twice. Misaka with that 70 gems trying to drop off. But Melody C, he takes a chunk to the face here. He's low.
Nice healing there from that Caduceus. No, the cellular reactor by Morales. 30% of her health bar by taking 30 energy. That was a nice attempt there by Tracer. Team Expert is actually needing to buy time. They don't want to just go for 16 passively. They don't want to give away turn-in. Big Storm, Bolt, and Stun Chain there on ETC. Melody C in trouble as well. Strafe gets turned on.
SPT is deciding to commit here. They're trying to get Team Expert low so they can get this turn in. And do they get it? They finally do. I think that was their last chance to finally pull it off. They do so. They will be at a talent disadvantage, but at least they've gotten some gems taken off of their ETC, who can now play a little bit more aggressive. And then they also at least have a little bit of breathing room on the field with Web Weavers pushing out. I'm more worried about, are they going to get anything off of it?
Yeah, both lanes and mid and bottom are pushed on account of them wanting to force a turn in at this particular time. That means by the time the Web Weavers arrive, they're going to be a little bit over half-life. They have a depreciation of HP as they travel and as they are alive. Top is already cleared. So now SPT is... What can they do? They don't have the same talent here. So do they fight the talent down? Do they just posture and just accept that this was just a comeback stroke in terms of map pressure?
Well, they're playing on the outskirts here. Melody C was flirting with disaster as Bad Benny jumps in and misses the Storm Bolt. 16 stun for SPT, but they're trying to catch a Thorough on the side here. A Thorough says, are you challenging right now? He fights backwards here with the 16 and a shield popping off, and SPT just takes the passive soak they got in the mid lane and the bottom lane, but they are still half a level away from 16.
Not bad play, though, by SPT. They have enough gems for a second turn-in. They're closer to 16. Get another tower here, maybe one more minion wave top, but Expert forces the issue from the looks of it.
They should here. I think a Thorough should get more aggressive. Just stay a little bit towards that ETC. Don't get hit with the power slide, and he should be just fine. That Benny's anchored in the spot where if things do get too hectic, he can save the team fight, and Team Expert chases SPT back across the map here. And they will be close on the gem turn-in. Not quite enough, but should drop off what they have for now.
Yeah, 10 gems behind a full turn-in is Expert. We have more than enough for SPT. They're going to get 16 off the back of these 3 minions here. There we go. That means SPT can do just about anything. They are as free as we are, Trickster.
Free and living. I had to think about that for a second. I was like, that was way too deep for me, Grubby. As Team Expert is looking to get deep themselves, Bad Benny jumps in. There's going to be a Storm Bolt, and Rhaegar can't even get the Ancestral Sealing off on top of Genji. Masaka himself may suffer the fate. He gets picked off right away there as Team Expert kills 2 members of SPT.
Nick with the Mirror Ball, perfect accuracy. They burst down Genji with the safeguard, the impending Ancestral Healing, the Morales Healing Beam. He was critically out of position, but only by the virtue of Expert's accuracy and coordination. They gratefully make use of that. Take down ETC as well, deny a truckload of gems, and now pushing in with a double siege camp onto the bottom keep. Team Expert is on the verge of taking a massive advantage, if not more.
Jen Zhao! He gets picked off there. We're going to have Morales grabbing the gems, but only 2 supports remain. Genji finally does respawn, but Team Expert looks at a keep, and they say, you know what? We're playing for keeps, and they grab it.
Yeah, playing for keeps. To see what you did there, Trixler, and they're going to get the first one, maybe the second. Bad Benny with a very agile move there, narrowly missing the bolt. Will not get punished though. There's plenty of tools available. There's Cleanse, Hand of Protection. Divine Shield is still there. Misses another Stormbolt, but that's keep number 1. Keep number 2. The Thorough Angel is looking for his next mark. Nearly has Pulse Rounds again. Who'll be my next victim?
2 keeps down, 3 levels up for Team Expert. They pull away, and they have enough for a turn-in. Melody C once again goes in for Tracer, and a Thorough, he seems done with this. This has happened too many times. He goes around for the fight, drops a Bolt bomb, almost gets it a blow up there. The safeguard, barely saving Genji's life.
Yeah, no safeguard, no alive Genji. And that was Melody C going on a little one-man mission that says, not today. I will defend here by myself. It was really a solo action here, but it wasn't going to work out. I mean, at this point, SPT, they're doomed either way. They need to take a very poor fight or to lose by doing nothing.
Yeah.
So whatever happens here, don't say, oh, they threw because it's a bad fight. They need to take a fight here. Now, they get the turn-in, but they're against level 20. No matter what, SPT will not get a good fight. Understand this. They know they're fighting with 10-20% win chance of the game here, but they're going to give it their all, that's for sure.
Grabbing at strings here. SPT groups up as 5 in the middle lane. Has catapults and a Merc camp pushing into them, but they know they have to move forward. 3 levels behind. They're going to have to fight at a disadvantage. Bala steps forward with the cleanse, auto-attacking Bad Benny. Same time, we have Genji in the back right, but he gets blown up. ETC tries to dive as well, but he gets caught as well. Bala getting picked off.
Nick with the Li Ming, a Thorough with the Tracer, the immediate blow-up, gets stuffed, and you get stuffed as well. That's 4 down. Morales goes down. Team Expert wipes the slate clean. There are no members of SPT alive, and they have their visors on the core, and they have their visors on Blizzcon in Anaheim.
Grubby, it's looking like Thanksgiving as everyone gets stuff there from Team Expert. We have constantly the pressure coming in from Tracer, and Team Expert will go straight towards the core and burn it down. Team Expert will be your 3rd European team to go to Anaheim BlizzCon next week and face off in the HGC Finals.
Congratulations, Team Expert 2-0 victory in the Deciders match. They will finish 2nd behind Ballistics, who stomped this group with a 4-0 score. And SPT, unfortunately for them, will be dropping out in this 3rd place.
That's it here, Grubby, from us. Let's go over to Caleres and the crew as they talk about that series.
That's right. Thank you, gentlemen. Strong showing from Team Expert as they take the series 2-0. Unfortunately for SPT, commiserations to them as their road here towards BlizzCon and the 2017 HGC finals comes to an end. Gentlemen, Expert overall, we theorized that the draft would go well for them, and it didn't really disappoint, Kaldor.
Yeah, the draft went really well for them, and we could see there wasn't a single kill on the side of SPT. Expert dominated the game from start to finish. SPT got a few objectives, but that was already about it.
And I just wanted to take a minute to kind of like look at what that series might look like from the shoes of SPT for a moment.
Okay.
Just being a roster from a region, obviously with the visa issues continuously that they've ended up having, not having ZZH here after having one of the most dominant performances they've ever had, to go up against Expert, you know, and being the ticket to BlizzCon, that very first game, I feel like it just shook them a smidge too much, because when we spoke to them behind the scenes, they were always talking about how playful they are, how much energy they have, how fun they are, and sitting on the side listening to their comms with, you know, because we conveniently get to be able to do that here. There was very little communication across the board. It felt like that was maybe the very first game in that ticket to BlizzCon, realizing it might be just out of reach. And again, not having your full roster and feeling like you could deserve it. I very much can understand why maybe the morale had kind of deteriorated. Yeah,
and I'm sure you can say the same. I've been in those sort of situations. And if you are a team that sort of rely on that sort of very energetic, very boisterous sort of personality, and it doesn't come through, then you can sort of see the proof is in the pudding, so to speak, in terms of the draft, in terms of the performance, in terms of the actual strategy they tried to deploy. Commiserations, obviously, to SPT, but you know, some of the performances they put in on this group today were worthy of a highlight.
Yeah, we can discuss how things are going afterwards, of course, as we'll come back. But first, we'll go over to the stage as Kevin has Bad Benny with him.
Thanks so much, Kalaris. That's right. I'm here with Bad Benny from Team Expert. Congratulations on progressing to round of 8 BlizzCon. That must be quite the relief. I got to ask you, though, what was going through comms? What were you thinking when they chose Tomb of the Spider Queen? I know we feel like that's one of your stronger maps, but why do you think they chose to take you guys there for Game 2?
I think specifically why they chose it was because we didn't play that well on it today. I mean, in the past, we played really well on it, and I think it's one of our better maps, but today our showing wasn't the best, so I think that's one of the reasons they did it, and they probably feel confident on it as well.
Sure. Well, Game 2, you definitely had the upper hand. Talk to me a little bit about this fact. All 3 European teams progressing to round of 8 at BlizzCon. Was that a result that you anticipated, and what does that do for your confidence going into round of 8, thinking about the European region and its strength?
I think it was 100% chance, except maybe for us if we somehow didn't win. But like Dignitas and Fnatic obviously will advance, I think. And yeah, I mean, Europe is a strong region. We're one of the better Europe teams. It feels good.
Awesome. Now, I've got to ask you, what's in the plans for this week to prepare for BlizzCon? I'm assuming it's more spicy chicken, but what would you say you have on deck?
I think we're going to try to scream like Ballistics a lot, because they're the one team we haven't practiced against, and we feel like we actually have a lot to learn from them from today's games. So I'm looking forward to that, and then just doing our best to prepare.
I have one final question. If you had to choose a team for round of 8, out of the ones that have qualified so far, who would you pick?
Dignitas or MVP. I don't know which one. I want to play both. Fnatic, because they're like Swedish and stuff, I don't really want to beat them that early. So.
Sure, fair enough. All right. Well, have a good week. I can't wait to see you on the BlizzCon stage. Congratulations once again. Okay, folks, that is the conclusion of Group D. We saw all 8 teams qualify over the last 4 days for the round of 8. I'm going to give you a quick recap. Ballistics and Team Expert from Group D. They board the BlizzCon bus alongside MVP Black, Tempo Storm, Fnatic, Team Freedom, Team Dignitas, and Roll20 Esports. That's 3 teams from North America, all 3 teams for EU, and 2 teams from Korea. It is going to be an incredible BlizzCon. All of that is going to go down next weekend, Friday and Saturday, November 3rd and 4th, 11 a.m., Twitch TV, and BlizzCon.com, whichever one you prefer. But don't go anywhere. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to reveal the round of 8 bracket live on stream. It's going to be it for me, though. My name's Kevin Michael Johnson. Thanks for being with us for the past 4 days. I'll see you next week at BlizzCon.